Tacloban City. As the only highly urbanized city in the region, it is the gateway to Eastern Visayas. Following several years of award-winning governance, 2013 turns out to be the most prosperous year in Tacloban's history. The city is poised to launch a campaign in December to market Tacloban as a competitive new destination for investment. But in November, the unthinkable happens.
This is probably one of the top 12, so the top dozen of all storms ever seen on this planet, with the satellite or in person. That's how big this is. We will lose people no matter what you can do. This is almost, at some point, for some people on these islands, an unsurvivable storm.
November 6. The city's disaster council convenes all barangay captains to be briefed about the seriousness of the coming storm. Immediately, the barangays are mobilized to evacuate storm surge hazard zones, seen in red on this map. Evacuees are assigned to one of 28 evacuation centers across the city. An industrial kitchen prepares meals, and designated police officers ensure order in each evacuation center. The city also coordinated with volunteer organizations and local universities, businesses, and media for rescue and relief operations in the aftermath of the storm. November 7, the day before the storm, Mayor Alfred Romualdez proceeds to the airport to receive officials of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, namely its chairman, Voltaire Gasmin, Interior Secretary Mar Rojas, and Civil Defense Chief Eduardo de Rosario. After a short press conference at the airport, Secretary Rojas calls for an 8 p.m. meeting at the PNP regional office to continue briefing and coordination with local government units and agencies. However, fire breaks out in downtown Tacloban. The mayor personally oversees the response and is delayed coming to the disaster council meeting. Nevertheless, he makes it. Assured of the Pag-asa forecast that Yolanda will make landfall around noon the following day, the secretaries call for another coordination meeting at 8 o'clock the following morning. But the storm arrives much earlier than predicted. November 8, Friday. By 7 a.m., winds have picked up strength. Tacloban City Mayor Alfred Romualdez is known throughout his 6 years as mayor to always be on the forefront of disaster preparedness. In fact, Tacloban has been recognized by the Asian Institute of Management for that. On the morning of the storm, he receives a report that the tide in San Pedro Bay, the site of the historic Battle of Leyte Gulf, has receded over 150 meters. To confirm the report, he proceeded to the beachfront so he could warn the city in case the tide returns as massive waves. But they are stranded in a seaside function hall by buffeting winds. As the mayor feared, the storm surge came very quickly, forcing his men to punch a hole in the ceiling so they could climb to the rafters and hold on for their lives. Fortunately, the mayor and his men have all climbed up to the rafters before the strongest waves surged into the building. Meanwhile, at the Astrodome, notice the height of the balustrade on the second level. The ocean rose close to that height. Evacuees inside scrambled to move the children to upper floors. Fortunately, the Astrodome did not collapse, saving the 8,000 people sheltered inside. Elsewhere, the tsunami-like storm surge leaves destruction in its wake. Downtown Tacloban is engulfed, as well as all the coastal communities. All this as Category 5 hurricane winds tore through the region at speeds reaching 378 kilometers per hour. As soon as the tide receded, the mayor ran 700 meters down the highway to reach his family. Their seaside residence is on a narrow peninsula that was completely submerged during the storm surge. His wife and daughters were scheduled to move to safer accommodations that morning. But at 6 a.m., the mayor calls them to stay put, as gale winds arrived much earlier than the predicted noontime landfall. Because all of the mayor's vehicles were destroyed, His family had no choice but to head downtown on foot, where conditions were likely not as desperate as in their neighborhood. Along the way, they were able to assist people with various needs. 2 kilometers down, the mayor's party reaches a major rotunda. Secretaries Rojas and Gazmin happen to be there. The mayor proceeds to give them a report of the dire situation in the peninsula. November 9, day after the storm, the mayor, with the chief of police, rescues one of the bodyguards of Secretary Mar Rojas. 2 of his other bodyguards died in the storm. An estimated 90% of the roads into Tacloban are impassable. The mayor decides to prioritize clearing the conduit from downtown Tacloban all the way to the airport, since air transport would be the fastest means to move aid and people into and out of the city. The city government has cleared the road from downtown all the way to the rotunda in the afternoon after the storm. The mayor supervises clearing the rest of the way, a task that took 9 harrowing hours, as clearing operations kept stopping to allow aid to come in and an exodus of people to fly out. Post-storm assessment reveals damage more closely matching the tsunami hazard map than the storm surge map followed for preemptive evacuation. Such was the magnitude of Yolanda. Power, water, and communication lines are all down. Roads are jammed with debris and dead bodies. Piles of debris need to be hauled to a provisional dump site. People roam the city on foot, braving the risk of waterborne disease in search of food and loved ones. An exodus of people jam-packed the airport, everyone desperate for a way out. Rampant looting ensued for 8 days, notably of a large beverage plant and Robinson's Mall, which in addition was heavily vandalized. As of March 2014, 2,717 dead bodies have been recovered. The Tacloban city government insisted on properly processing and, if possible, identifying the dead by forensics before they are permanently buried, as a service to the grieving city. In the wake of all this tragedy, Mayor Romualdez is determined to see to it that Tacloban City does not remain a victim, but will build back to become more vibrant and more resilient than ever. The city enlists the help of UN Habitat to craft a master plan for recovery and rehabilitation that will transition well from the emergency phase into forging a city with a strong future. A task force is formed consisting of the city's planners and administrators, along with a core team from UN Habitat. They hold a series of intensive planning workshops with veterans from a wide range of disciplines. The master plan seeks to address 5 key result areas: shelter, social services, infrastructure, the economy, and last but not the least, environmental sustainability. Of high priority is shelter. In their efforts to move on, hundreds of families living in hazardous coastal communities have been forced to live in tents or rebuild their houses. 3 years prior to Yolanda, the city government was able to provide new homes, completed in just 5 months, to families affected by a massive landslide. Even before the master plan is complete, various donors began construction of temporary shelters in northern Tacloban. The city is now relocating families from the most vulnerable areas to these new villages. Also, GMA Kapuso Foundation and Habitat for Humanity have started building permanent houses in brand new subdivisions. The vision is to build a new township in northern Tacloban, which has the advantage of higher, safer altitudes for residential development. The goal is to reduce population density in dangerous coastal settlements in southern Tacloban and rezone these parts for commerce and leisure, buffer zones in the event of another inundation. The University of the Philippines Tacloban is moving their campus to the north. The regional hospital and industries are moving in as well. Carefully designed infrastructure and transport systems will link downtown to these new developments, so the future for northern Tacloban is looking bright. After 2 months of intensive work, the city unveils the master plan to the people of Tacloban for the first time in March 2014. Various members of the academe, the business sector, and the city's workforce are given time to air their questions and ideas. Since then, the city has been taking the master plan to the grassroots, noting the sentiments and ideas of even the poorest of the poor, to ensure that the development plan is not merely the fruit of an elitist exercise, but truly collaborative across all sectors. to make sure that the momentum of planning quickly carries over to execution. The city is also seeking multiple sources of funding beyond the national government. Tacloban lost 500 children to Typhoon Yolanda. Mayor Alfred Romualdez is determined to prevent this from happening again. The task of building back better is at hand for the children, the future of Tacloban City.